Hello, CS112. Today I'll be going over a quick solution to Lab 1. I'll be doing the optional task as well as the graded task, as well as the part 2 of the graded task, which was the challenge question, which was not part of your grade. And I'll timestamp all of them down below in case you want to skip ahead. So let's just dive right into the practice task, which had to do with running your Python file along with a tester, which you had to do with Project 1. So I'm going to download this tester zip from Blackboard. I'm going to open it up in my file explorer. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to extract everything because it is a file. And I've extracted it within the tester practice folder. So as you can see, it's downloads, tester practice, in tester practice. So 2 folders, tester practice, which is great. I'm going to rename this to the naming convention. And the main thing with this task was to run your this file along with the tester and see what happens. So I've opened up my command prompts. Let me zoom in a little bit. See, I'm going to navigate to where I need to go, which is my downloads, and then tester, and then tester. And as you can see, I'm going to type dir to just see the contents in this directory for Mac and Linux users, ls. I'm going to hit enter. And yes, I have my file as well as all the tester files needed to run them together. Now to run them together, I'll type in Python space tester name space my file name. Hit enter. As you can see, it'll give all these failures. So the way this tester is set up is it separates the every failed test case with these number signs, and within each number sign is the test case you failed. It will give you the arguments that it was fed, as well as the expected output, the output it wanted, versus the output it got from your program. As you can see here, it wanted a comma after repeat, but my program didn't produce that. So how do we fix that now? Well, great question. I'm going to open up my text editor here. I'm going to open the file that I just downloaded. So let's go to my, go to downloads, and I'm going to open up this file here. Click open, and I've now opened it up. I needed to add a comma after feet. Now I'm going to hit Control S, and I'm going to retest it. Now I am going to use the terminal down here in my text editor. This is this exact same thing as your command prompt, so don't get too scared here. It's the same thing. I just don't want to have to keep switching back and forth between screens, and I'm sure you appreciate that as well. So now again, I'm going to type dir to make sure everything's where it needs to be, although it obviously should be because I haven't moved anything. And then I'm going to run it again. Python, tester name, my file name, enter. I passed 4 out of 4 tests. Now they did want you to submit this Python page to Blackboard, or no, to Gradescope. But as you can see, for those of you who did, it was graded 0 out of 0. So whether you submit it or not, it would not hurt your grade or help your grade. So the next task, I will go ahead and open up a file. First thing I like to do is save it as a Python file, and I'll just save it in the same directory here. And obviously the naming convention, cat.py, the py will automatically convert it to a Python file, so you don't have to dig through here. Hit save, and the task was to convert hours, minutes, and seconds to seconds. So there were, part 1 was to convert hours, minutes, and seconds into seconds, whereas part 2 was to convert seconds into hours, minutes, and seconds. Which was, the reverse of each other. So part 1 is part 1. So I'm just going to say part 2. Was to ask for first hours. So hours equals int input, and then please input hours, followed by minutes, which obviously I'm going to need to wrap it in ints because by default it's a string. So please input minutes. And lastly, I'm going to ask for seconds. So int inputs, please input seconds. If I can type seconds, there we go. Now that I have that all wrapped up here, we need to think about what exactly we need to do, how we can convert these. Well, luckily enough, they gave us conversions on the PDF. I don't know if you guys still have that, but it said 1 hour was 3,600 seconds. So the easiest way to do that is to say something like hours equals hours times 3,600. So what this does, it sets the value hours to the value of hours times 3,600. So that would convert however many hours it may be into however many seconds that may be. Next thing we want to do is convert the minutes. So we know that 1 minute equals 60 seconds. And I'm just going to do something similar as I did above and say minutes equals minutes times 60. And lastly, I'm going to just print everything out. I don't need to convert seconds to seconds. So that would just be, so your time in seconds is, and then I'm going to, let's get rid of that space there because the comma will add a space in my print statement. And then I'm going to just print the sum of everything. So hours plus minutes plus seconds. And Control S to save that. Since we're already in the proper directory, now all I need to do is type Python followed by the file name, hit enter. It's going to ask for my input in hours. Now the example that I'm just going to use the example that was given to us on that PDF. So it was 1 hour, 21 minutes, and 3 seconds. 3 seconds. Yep. And if you saw the PDF, that is the correct output. I converted it correctly. So we got that down on one. Now let's move on to the second part of it, which was to take in, ask the user for an amount of seconds and then convert that to hours, minutes, and seconds. So the way that I thought about doing this, especially with the limited Python knowledge you guys have at your disposal, you guys obviously will be learning some stuff that will make this very, very easy on the semester. But I'm going to use stuff that you guys know of. It's a lot more clear. So obviously, the very first thing I want to do is I'm going to create a total seconds. That's more, sounds better. Total seconds, and I'm going to ask a user to input seconds. So please enter total seconds. And then, excuse me. Now, how am I going to work backwards? How can I take, let's say, this number 4863 and find out how many hours, minutes, and seconds it has? Well, I immediately thought that we need to start with hours. Let's chunk away at this number. Once we determine how many hours can fit in here, we take that away. So we take hours times 3,600 away from this. If there even is an hour. So what I need to do here, do that is I'm going to do hours. I'm going to say hours equals total seconds floor divided by 3,600. This is going to do is this is going to check how many how many of these can fit into here. Essentially, that's what this line is doing right here. And next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to update my total seconds so I can start pulling minutes and then eventually seconds. So I'm not just going to have an infinite amount of time here. So total seconds equals total seconds minus, I'm going to say hours times 3,600. Now what this is doing here, why this works, is that if we have no hours, let's say the number of seconds they put in is they put in 15 seconds, this will equal 0. So you'll end up having total seconds equals total seconds minus 0, not affecting total seconds at all. And then it would move on to minutes, which is why we always need to start with the biggest, which is why we needed to start with hours in the first place. Now we can calculate minutes a very similar way. So total seconds divided by 60 per seconds. Then we need to update total seconds. Again, if they answered 16 seconds, this would be total seconds minus 0, because minutes would equal 0, that equation. Lastly, we don't really need to convert seconds to seconds, but to stay consistent with our variables, I'm going to say seconds equals total seconds. That's how many is going to be left over after these subtractions, if there are any. And lastly, I'm going to say print, and I'm just going to list everything out. So hours, not type today, guys, sorry. And then go ahead. minutes. Yes, minutes. But I'm going to put everything on a new line. I'm just going to say minutes. Minutes. Lastly, hours. Like seconds. Set that to X. Okay, seconds. I'm going to format it a little bit to make it more readable. Pull in there. Make it prettier. Pretty cool in there. Now I'm just going to hit Control S and run the same program. So I'm going to do the same inputs as before, since we know what the expected output should be. And now, since we know what the hours, minutes, and seconds should be here, I'm just going to input total time in seconds. So 48:63. Enter. You can see I've converted everything correctly. I've converted it from hours, minutes, and seconds to seconds back to hours, minutes, and seconds. If you have any questions, let me know on Piazza, or you can leave a comment down below.